I'm 73 years old, and I'm sitting in a studio apartment that costs more per month than I ever imagined spending on rent. The walls are thin enough that I can hear my neighbor's television through them, and there's a water stain on the ceiling that grows a little larger every time it rains. This isn't where I thought I'd end up. This isn't what I imagined when I held my son for the first time and promised him the world. There's a letter in my desk drawer. I've read it so many times that the paper has gone soft at the creases, threatening to tear along the folds. I wrote it 3 years ago, on a night when the loneliness felt like it might actually kill me. It says everything I never had the courage to say to Daniel's face. Every truth I swallowed. Every hurt I pretended didn't exist. I never sent it, and now I never will, because 2 weeks ago I received a phone call that changed everything. The voice on the other end was professional, detached, the kind of tone that people use when they're about to deliver news that will alter the trajectory of your life. The lawyer told me that my son had passed away. Heart attack. Sudden. He was only 47. But that wasn't the devastating part. The devastating part came when the lawyer told me why he was calling and what my son had done in the final weeks of his life. What he'd known, what he'd planned, and what he'd kept hidden from me until it was too late. I need to tell you this story, not because I'm looking for sympathy, not because I want you to tell me I was a good mother or that I did my best. I need to tell you this because I spent 30 years believing one version of my life, and in the span of a single phone call, I discovered that almost everything I thought I knew was a carefully constructed lie. And the cruelest part? The person who built that lie did it because he loved me. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when things were still simple, when I still believed that love and sacrifice were enough to build a good life. My husband, Richard, died when Daniel was only 16. One moment Richard was laughing at something on the television, and the next he was clutching his chest, his face going gray. I remember screaming for Daniel to call 911, remember holding Richard's hand in the back of the ambulance, watching his eyes glaze over with a distance I couldn't bridge. He died before we reached the hospital. The grief was a living thing that moved into our house and never left. It sat at the dinner table with us. It slept in the empty space beside me in bed. But I had Daniel, and Daniel had me, and we convinced ourselves that we could be enough for each other. I worked 2 jobs to keep us in the house. During the day, I was a receptionist at a dental office. At night, I cleaned offices downtown, pushing a vacuum cleaner through empty corporate hallways while Daniel did his homework at the kitchen table at home. I was exhausted all the time, perpetually running on 4 hours of sleep and too much coffee, but I told myself it was worth it. I was building something. I was giving my son stability. Daniel was brilliant. Everyone said so. His teachers, his guidance counselor, even the parents of his friends would pull me aside and tell me how special he was. He had Richard's analytical mind and my determination. He got into Stanford with a full academic scholarship, and I cried for an hour when he told me. Happy tears, the kind that come from a place so deep you didn't even know it existed. He moved to California, and I stayed in Ohio. We talked every Sunday, without fail. He'd tell me about his classes, his friends, his dreams of working in finance. I'd tell him about my week, though I always edited out the hard parts, the overtime shifts, the way my back hurt so badly some mornings that I could barely get out of bed, the loneliness that pressed down on me when I came home to an empty house. After Stanford, he got a job at a prestigious investment firm in San Francisco. He was making more money than I'd ever seen in my life. He sent me a check for $5,000 that first year, told me to treat myself. I put it toward the mortgage instead. The calls became less frequent after that. Every other Sunday, then once a month, then only on holidays. He was busy, he explained. Important meetings, demanding clients, a career that required everything he had. I understood. I told him I understood. He met Veronica when he was 30. She was beautiful in the way that rich people are beautiful, polished, and expensive, with perfect teeth and hair that always fell exactly right. They got married in Napa Valley at a vineyard I couldn't pronounce the name of. I wore a dress I'd bought on sale and felt desperately out of place among Veronica's family and friends, who discussed wine pairings and European vacations with the casual ease of people who'd never worried about money a day in their lives. Daniel seemed happy, though. That's what I told myself. He'd found success. He'd found love. He was living the life I'd sacrificed so much to give him. That should have been enough. But then the calls stopped altogether. It started gradually. I'd call and get his voicemail. He'd text back later with an apology. Stuck in a meeting, crazy week, we'll call soon. But soon never came. Then my calls started going straight to voicemail, as if he'd silenced my number specifically. My texts went unanswered. I tried reaching out to Veronica. Her responses were curt, perfunctory. Daniel's traveling for work. We're dealing with some personal matters. I'll let him know you called. I didn't understand what I'd done wrong. I replayed our last conversation in my mind, searching for the moment when I'd said something to offend him, but I couldn't find it. We talked about his work, about a vacation he and Veronica were planning. It had been pleasant, normal. And then silence. The silence stretched into months. Then a year. Then 2. I sent birthday cards that were never acknowledged. Christmas gifts that disappeared into the void. I left voicemails that became increasingly desperate, my voice cracking as I tried to sound casual while asking my only child why he wouldn't speak to me. People would ask about Daniel, and I'd lie. I'd say he was doing wonderfully, so busy with his career. We just talked last week, actually. I became an expert at deflecting, at changing the subject, at hiding the shame that came with being abandoned by your own child. I'd see other mothers with their adult children, at restaurants, at the grocery store, laughing together over coffee, and the jealousy would burn in my chest like acid. What did they have that I didn't? What had they done right that I'd done wrong? I started writing the letter on a particularly bad night. It was Daniel's birthday, and I tried calling him one more time, knowing he wouldn't answer but unable to stop myself. The voicemail beep felt like a mockery. I poured myself a glass of wine, then another, and I started writing. I wrote about the loneliness, about lying awake at night wondering what I'd done to deserve this abandonment, about the way other people's pity felt like knives when they'd ask about him, and I'd have to admit I didn't know how he was doing. I wrote about the sacrifices I'd made, not to guilt him but to remind him that I'd loved him with everything I had. I wrote that I'd spent my entire life building a bridge to him, only to discover he'd burned it down from his end without ever telling me why. But I never sent it, because some part of me still hoped that one day he'd call, that there'd been some terrible misunderstanding that would be cleared up and we'd laugh about it, and everything would go back to normal. Sending the letter felt like giving up, like admitting that the silence was permanent. So it stayed in my drawer, a confession I was too afraid to make. Then came the financial troubles. I'd retired from both my jobs at 68, my body finally giving out after decades of overwork. I had some savings and my Social Security, but it wasn't much. The house I'd worked myself to exhaustion to keep, started falling apart. The roof leaked. The furnace died in the middle of January. The foundation had cracks that an inspector said would cost $30,000 to fix. I couldn't afford any of it. I took out a reverse mortgage, something I'd sworn I'd never do. It bought me time, but not enough. Medical bills from a hospital stay for pneumonia wiped out what was left of my savings. I started skipping meals to make the money stretch further. I stopped turning on the heat until the house was so cold I could see my breath. And through it all, the silence from my son continued. I didn't tell him about any of it. Part of me still had too much pride. Part of me was too angry. And part of me knew, with a certainty that made me sick, that he wouldn't care even if I did tell him. Finally, I had no choice. I had to sell the house. The house where Daniel had grown up, where Richard and I had built our life together. I moved into this studio apartment with whatever furniture would fit and sold or gave away everything else. 40 years of memories, reduced to what I could cram into 400 square feet. I didn't tell Daniel about that either. What was the point? But here's what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known. At the same time I was selling that house, desperately trying to survive, my son was making a series of decisions that would destroy everything I thought I understood about our relationship. And the worst part? He was doing it for me. The lawyer's name was Michael Peterson. He called me on a Tuesday morning, and I almost didn't answer because I didn't recognize the number. I'd grown wary of unknown calls. They were usually debt collectors or scammers. But something made me pick up. His voice was gentle in a way that immediately put me on guard. People don't use that tone unless they're about to deliver bad news. He asked if I was Mrs. Sarah Mitchell, Daniel Mitchell's mother. I confirmed that I was, my heart already starting to race. He told me about the heart attack, about how Daniel had collapsed in his office, how his colleagues had called 911, how he died en route to the hospital. He'd been dead for 4 days before anyone thought to call me. I didn't cry. I felt like I should, but the tears wouldn't come. Instead, there was just a vast, howling emptiness, as if someone had reached into my chest and scooped out everything vital. My son was dead, and my last conversation with him had been 2 years ago. A brief, awkward phone call where he'd sounded distracted and eager to hang up. Mr. Peterson was still talking, and I forced myself to focus on his words. Mrs. Mitchell, I need to schedule a time for you to come to my office. Daniel left specific instructions, and there are matters we need to discuss. Documents you need to sign. Documents. Of course. Even in death, everything came down to paperwork. I met with him 3 days later. His office was in downtown Columbus, all dark wood and leather chairs and diplomas on the walls. He offered me coffee, which I accepted because I needed something to do with my hands. He slid a folder across the desk toward me. I'm going to be direct with you, Mrs. Mitchell, because Daniel asked me to be. About 6 months ago, your son came to see me. He wanted to update his will and establish a trust. He also asked me to act as an intermediary for something complicated. I opened the folder. The first document was Daniel's will. I skimmed it, not really processing the legal language until a number caught my eye. $2.4 million. My son had been worth $2.4 million. The room tilted slightly. I'd been one late rent payment away from eviction, and my son who hadn't spoken to me in 2 years, had been a multi-millionaire. There's more, Mr. Peterson said quietly. Keep reading. The will left everything to me. The money, the house in San Francisco, his investment portfolio, his car. Everything. But attached to the will was a letter. The moment I saw Daniel's handwriting, my hands started to shake so badly that Mr. Peterson had to help me hold the pages steady. Mom, if you're reading this, I'm dead. I'm sorry that's such a blunt way to start, but there's no way to soften it. And honestly, after everything, I don't think I have the right to cushion anything for you anymore. I need to explain something, and I know it won't be enough. I know it won't undo the hurt I've caused. But you deserve to know the truth, even if the truth is ugly and makes you hate me even more than you probably already do. 3 years ago, Veronica gave me an ultimatum. She told me I had to choose between you and her. She'd been feeling that way for a while. I think, jealous of the relationship we had, resentful of the way I talked about you, about how much you'd sacrificed for me. She came from money, Mom. Her parents paid for everything she ever wanted. She couldn't understand why I felt so indebted to you, why I sent you money, why I called you every week. She told me that if I wanted our marriage to work, I needed to cut ties with you. Completely. No calls, no visits, no contact. And Cool, Mom, I chose my wife over my mother, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. However long that ends up being. I had to stop reading. My vision blurred, and this time the tears came. Hot, angry tears that I couldn't control. Mr. Peterson pushed a box of tissues across the desk and looked away, giving me what privacy he could. Veronica. It had been Veronica all along. I forced myself to keep reading. I told myself I was doing the right thing, that you'd be okay, that you were strong, that you'd understand eventually. I told myself a lot of lies to make it easier to ignore your calls, to delete your voicemails without listening to them, to pretend you didn't exist. But about 8 months ago, I found out something that changed everything. I found out I was sick. Heart disease, Mom. Genetic. The same thing that killed Dad. The doctors told me I needed surgery, but even with the surgery, my prognosis wasn't great. They gave me 5 years, maybe 10 if I was lucky. And suddenly, every choice I'd made seemed so stupid, so wasteful. I'd thrown away 2 years with you, years I'd never get back, for a marriage that I realized had been hollow from the start. Veronica didn't love me. She loved my money, my status, the life I could give her. The moment I told her about the diagnosis, she suggested we take some time apart to process. She was already protecting her assets, already planning her exit. I wanted to call you. Every single day, I picked up the phone and started to dial your number. But what would I even say? Sorry I abandoned you for 2 years, but I'm dying now, so maybe we can reconnect? How do you apologize for something like that? How do you make it right? So I decided to do the only thing I could. I hired Mr. Peterson to track your situation, to figure out how you were doing, whether you needed anything. And Mom, when I found out what your life had become, I wanted to die right then and there. I found out you'd sold the house, that you were living in a studio apartment, struggling to make rent, that you'd been hospitalized for pneumonia because you couldn't afford to heat your home properly, that you were eating 1 meal a day to save money, while I was living in a 4-bedroom house in Pacific Heights, while I had more money than I could spend in a lifetime, while you, the woman who'd given up everything for me, were barely surviving. I couldn't breathe. The office felt too small, too hot. Mr. Peterson leaned forward, concerned, but I waved him off and kept reading through tears that made the words swim on the page. I wanted to fix it immediately. I wanted to call you, to send you money, to beg for your forgiveness. But Mr. Peterson advised against it. He said that if I suddenly reached out after 2 years of silence, especially if I told you about the diagnosis, it would seem like I was only doing it because I was dying, that it would make everything worse, not better. He suggested I work behind the scenes instead, that I set up a trust for you, that I make sure you'd be taken care of after I was gone, that I do what I could to help you now, without you knowing it was me. So that's what I did. Remember when your landlord suddenly agreed to reduce your rent? That was me. I bought the building through an LLC and instructed the management company to adjust your lease. Remember when you got that notification that your hospital bill had been paid by financial assistance? That was me too. The groceries that kept appearing at your door from a community charity? Me. I couldn't give you back the 2 years I stole. I couldn't undo the damage. But I could at least make sure you weren't suffering because of my choices. Mr. Peterson warned me that I was running out of time, that if I wanted to see you, to really reconcile, I needed to do it soon. I scheduled the surgery for next month. I planned to call you after it was done, when I hopefully had a few more years to make things right. But I guess I didn't even get that. Mom, I know this letter doesn't fix anything. I know it's too little, too late. I know you're reading this and probably thinking that I'm a coward, and you're right. I was a coward. I let a toxic marriage poison the most important relationship in my life, and then I was too afraid to admit it and fight to get it back. But I need you to know something. Not a single day went by when I didn't think about you, when I didn't miss you, when I didn't regret the choice I made. You were the best mother anyone could have asked for. Every good thing in my life came from you, from the sacrifices you made, from the love you gave so freely, and I repaid you with abandonment and silence. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. The money is yours. All of it. I know it doesn't make up for what I did, but it's all I have left to give. Please use it to live the life you deserve. Travel. Enjoy yourself. Find happiness if you can. And if there's any part of you that can forgive me, I hope you'll keep this letter and remember that I loved you. Even when I was too broken and stupid to show it, I loved you. Your son, Daniel. I sat in that office for a long time after I finished reading, the letter clutched in my shaking hands. Mr. Peterson didn't rush me. He just waited, patient and professional, while I tried to process what I'd just learned. My son hadn't abandoned me because he stopped loving me. He'd abandoned me because his wife had forced him to choose, and he'd made the wrong choice. A choice he'd spent the last months of his life trying to undo. But the bitterness that had calcified around my heart over 2 years didn't just dissolve because I understood the reason now. Understanding didn't erase the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, wondering what I'd done wrong. It didn't erase the shame of lying to people about why my son never called. It didn't erase the loneliness that had become my constant companion. There's one more thing, Mr. Peterson said gently, sliding another envelope across the desk. Daniel asked me to give you this after you'd read the letter. He said you'd understand what it meant. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a photograph. Old, faded, bent at the corners from years of handling. It was from Daniel's 6th birthday party, the one I'd saved for months to be able to afford. In the picture, Daniel was sitting on my lap, his face covered in chocolate frosting, grinning at the camera. And I was looking down at him with an expression of such pure, uncomplicated love that it hurt to see. On the back, in Daniel's handwriting, "This is how I always saw you. This is what I destroyed."
I'm sorry, Mom.
I'm so sorry. And that's when I realized the most devastating truth of all. My son had spent his final months not just trying to help me, but punishing himself. He'd known he was dying, and instead of seeking comfort, he'd chosen to suffer alone with his guilt. He'd orchestrated everything so that I'd only learn the truth after he was gone, when it was too late for me to forgive him to his face, too late to tell him it would be okay, too late for either of us to heal together. He'd made sure I'd never have to struggle again, but he denied both of us the one thing we needed most, a chance to say goodbye. The funeral was small. I'd asked Mr. Peterson to arrange it, since I didn't know any of Daniel's friends or colleagues. Veronica didn't attend, which didn't surprise me. Mr. Peterson mentioned that she'd already filed paperwork challenging the will, claiming that Daniel hadn't been of sound mind when he wrote it. She'd lose. Mr. Peterson had made sure Daniel had been thoroughly evaluated by multiple doctors specifically to prevent that, but she'd try anyway. I stood at my son's grave and tried to feel something other than the complicated mess of love and anger and grief that churned in my chest. I wanted to feel pure sorrow, the clean kind of grief that comes from losing someone without complications. But I couldn't, because even knowing why he'd done what he'd done, even understanding the impossible position Veronica had put him in, part of me couldn't forgive him for choosing his marriage over his mother, for letting 2 years pass without a word, for deciding unilaterally that it was better to help me in secret than to simply pick up the phone. I went back to my studio apartment that night, sat at my desk, and pulled out the letter I'd written 3 years ago, the one I'd never sent, because I'd been holding on to hope that somehow things would get better. I read it again, seeing my own pain reflected back at me, and I realized something. Daniel and I had been trapped in the same prison. We'd both been too proud, too hurt, too afraid to bridge the gap that had opened between us. I'd waited for him to make the first move. He'd waited until he thought he could make it right before reaching out. And in all that waiting, in all that pride, we'd lost the chance to simply be mother and son again. I took both letters, his and mine, and I sat with them for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't expected. I forgave him, not because what he did was okay, not because the pain he caused was justified, but because holding on to the anger was only hurting me now, and he was beyond the reach of my resentment. I forgave him because I understood something I'd been too hurt to see before. Daniel had been weak, not malicious. He'd made a terrible choice, then compounded it by being too ashamed to admit his mistake. He'd loved me badly in the end, but he had loved me. The groceries, the rent reduction, the hospital bills, those hadn't been about easing his guilt. They'd been about making sure I survived, even if he couldn't be part of my life. And the trust, the will, the letter, those had been his attempt to give me something beyond money. They'd been his way of saying that I mattered, that the years I'd spent raising him hadn't been wasted, that he'd understood. Too late, but he'd understood what I'd given up for him. I burned both letters that night, watching them curl and blacken in the kitchen sink. They'd served their purpose. I didn't need to carry either of them anymore. Over the next few months, I settled Daniel's affairs with Mr. Peterson's help. The house in San Francisco sold for more than $2 million. His investment portfolio was worth another $1 million. After taxes and legal fees, I was left with more money than I could possibly need for the rest of my life. I bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing ostentatious, just a 2-bedroom cottage with a garden and enough space for all my memories. I donated $100,000 to a scholarship fund for children who'd lost a parent in Richard's name. I set up another fund for financial literacy courses for single mothers in Daniel's name. And then I did something for myself. I traveled. I went to Italy, to France, to Greece. All the places I dreamed about but never thought I'd see. I ate in restaurants without checking the prices first. I bought clothes that fit well and made me feel good. I lived, for the first time in decades, without constantly calculating whether I could afford to exist. But the money didn't fill the hole that Daniel's absence had left. It made life easier, more comfortable, but it didn't make me less alone. I started volunteering at a community center, teaching older adults how to use computers. I joined a book club. I made friends, real friends, not just acquaintances I lied to about my relationship with my son. I built a life that was mine, not defined by what I'd lost. And slowly, painfully, I learned to live with the contradictions, to hold both truths at once, that Daniel had failed me, and that he had loved me, that he'd caused immense pain, and that he'd tried, in his broken way, to make it right, that I had every right to be angry, and that I chose forgiveness anyway. I still think about that letter I never sent, about all the things I'd written in anger and hurt, all the accusations and pain I'd wanted him to know about. And I'm glad I never sent it. Not because he didn't deserve to hear it. He did. But because in the end, causing more pain, even justified pain, wouldn't have changed anything. It wouldn't have brought him back. It wouldn't have erased the 2 years of silence. It wouldn't have given us the relationship we should have had. Forgiveness, I learned, isn't about saying that what happened was okay. It's about refusing to let the past consume your future. It's about choosing to remember the good along with the bad, to see the full, complicated humanity of the people who hurt us. Daniel made terrible mistakes. He was weak when he should have been strong, silent when he should have spoken, proud when he should have been humble. But he was also scared and guilty and trying in his own inadequate way to do right by me when it mattered most. He was, in other words, human, flawed and broken, like all of us. I keep the photograph he left me on my nightstand now, the one from his 6th birthday party, where we're both smiling, before life got complicated and painful and impossible. I look at it every morning and every night, and I try to remember that version of us, when love was simple and uncomplicated, when being mother and son was enough. And sometimes, when the grief hits me hard and I miss him so much I can barely breathe, I write him letters. Not angry ones like that first letter. These are different. I tell him about my day, about the places I've traveled, about the life I'm building with the gift he left me. I tell him about the good things I remember, his laugh, his curiosity, the way he'd hug me so tight when he was little, like he was afraid I might disappear. I tell him that I forgive him, that I understand, that I wish things had been different, but I'm grateful for the time we had. And then I burn those letters too, sending them up into smoke, hoping that somehow, wherever he is, he receives them. That he knows he's not forgotten. That he knows, despite everything, he was loved. I'm 73 years old, and I'm sitting in my living room. My own living room, in my own house, surrounded by plants and books and photographs of a life that was harder than it should have been, but more full of love than I sometimes remembered. There's still a letter in my desk drawer, but it's different now. It's not the angry one I wrote 3 years ago, or the confession Daniel left me. It's a new one I'm still writing. It's to you, whoever you are listening to this story. Maybe you're estranged from someone you love. Maybe you're carrying anger that feels too heavy to put down. Maybe you're waiting for someone to make the first move, to bridge a gap that grows wider every day. I want to tell you this: don't wait. Don't let pride or hurt or fear steal the time you have. Don't convince yourself that silence is safety, or that eventually everything will work itself out without effort. Life is shorter than you think. The people you love are more fragile than they seem. And the things left unsaid don't disappear. They just become regrets you'll carry forever. My son tried to make things right, but he ran out of time. I wanted to forgive him, but I never got to say the words to his face. We both loved each other, but we let too much time pass before admitting it. Don't make our mistakes. If there's someone you need to call, call them. If there's something you need to say, say it. If there's forgiveness you need to offer or ask for, do it now, while you still can. Because someday, you'll be sitting where I am, holding letters that were never sent and grieving conversations that never happened. And all the money in the world won't bring back the time you wasted. I learned to forgive my son after he was gone. I learned to live with the complicated truth of our relationship, to hold both the pain and the love without letting either one destroy me. But I would trade every dollar he left me for one more conversation, one more chance to hear his voice, to tell him that I understood, to say goodbye properly. That's the real inheritance he gave me, not the money, but the lesson. The understanding that love is fragile and time is finite, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to reach out, even when you're afraid, even when you're hurt, even when you don't know if you'll be forgiven. My son and I never got our second chance, but you still have yours. Don't waste it. If this story spoke to your heart, don't let it fade. Subscribe to The Silent Parents, where every emotion finds a home.